Hello and welcome to NerdVsWorld, episode 25. 20,000 Nerds Under the Sea. I'm Brendan.
I'm Spindles.
And I'm Ady.
And we are joined via the magic of Skype by the wonderful Professor Elemental.
Magic.
Hello! Thanks for having me.
Two tins and some string stretched all the way down to Brighton.
You've already seen my computer, haven't you? That is pretty much what I'm working with here.
Good evening, sir. How are you? I'm
very, very well, thank you. Yeah, things are going well despite the inclement weather.
So you've not been swept off into the sea?
So far, no. I'm quite enjoying it. I quite like it because it's all cosy. It's all cosy. And there's no pressure to go outside when the weather's crap like this, is it? You can just stay inside and do podcasts. It's lovely.
How very self-referential of you. Yeah, because I know something about the other half of Brighton Pier fell into the sea the other day.
I know, the poor Brighton Pier. It suffered so many indignities. It's been burnt and kicked in, and now it's just falling into the sea. So I feel very, very sorry for that. If I had the money, my God, I'd make that into my personal supervillain hideout and live in it forever.
I don't think there's much left of it. It'd have to be underwater, and that'd just have to be the way
better,
in.
Wouldn't it? Oh, one day.
I saw something online the other day. There was some pictures of an underground ballroom. Did anyone else see that?
No.
It's something that basically in the middle of a lake. It's like very, I don't know if you know the game BioShock.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very like that. There's like this kind of what looks like a pavilion in the middle of a lake, and then you go in that and there's an underground ballroom that some mad Victorian guy had built.
That's amazing.
Oh, that's part of why that's why the Professor was so attractive. It's like I've got before I did the Professor, I've got a book of crazy Victorian inventions, and there are all these wonderful things that they built. Like there's this wonderful thing. They built this sort of bullet shape in Victorian times. This madman built a sort of bullet, and it was supposed to be like a ride, like a big wheel. And he basically just put people in seats in this great big sort of bullet type shaped thing, and just dropped it into a hole, and that was entertainment. And like people aren't trying those sort of things anymore. There's no underwater ballrooms, and there's no giant bullets full of people firing into the ground. It makes me very upset.
I think that the way things are going at the moment, it's entirely likely you'd see a kind of rekindling of that sort of thing.
I bloody hope so. That's what I want.
It'd be lovely because all the people into steampunk these days are getting more and more kind of involved in building contraptions and so forth.
That's true, actually. One of the Americans, if they got their hands on my book, I tell you, the American steampunks, they'd knock something like that up in no time. They put us to shame.
So, yeah, for the benefit of those who are listening to the show that haven't heard of Professor Elemental before, and shame on you if you haven't.
Indeed.
It seems like it's been absolutely ages, but it was only just less than a year ago that I first heard of you and first saw you at a convention in the wilds of Wales.
Oh, yes.
Which we'll be talking about a bit more later on. But yes, I don't know. How would you describe yourself in a one-liner, sir?
I reckon it's sort of steam-powered hip-hop that I make. So I'm predominantly a musician, although it's spiralling off into lots of other directions. And I make steampunk hip-hop with lots of songs about tea and trousers and pixies. I haven't done any songs about pixies yet, but it's the sort of thing I would about. Yes, that's essentially. I make very, very unusual music that seems to have found its niche in the world of steampunks and nerds, which is convenient because that's the world I was already living in. So.
Fantastic.
Indeed, it does. Yeah, all of your audience seems to be very similar to us and our friends. So that's kind of cool as well.
Honestly, I'm over the moon. For years, I was trying to do hip hop, and it was reaching the wrong people. Nobody wanted it, and then I started aiming at things that I actually liked. And inevitably attracted people that I actually liked, which is really nice.
Yeah, so where did the kind of inspiration for the Professor come from? Is it from your own love of that Victorian thing you were talking about?
No, well, there's a sort of grown-up version of the tale and a more family-friendly version of the tale. I can probably mix the two together. But basically, it was a friend of Tom Caruana who does all of my music. I was just doing normal rapping. I was a normal person, and he was doing a special album where each rapper was going to be over representing a different period of time, and I did the Victorian one. So we had lovely dinner of mushrooms on toast and sat in a tree all night and came up with Professor Elemental, just to do it as a one-off track, and we did it as a one-off song. Then I did a one-off show and realised that was my calling.
Yeah, I mean, since then it's spiralled into everything. I mean, the amount of stuff that you're up to these days is just insane.
Yes,
I keep seeing you popping up on things.
I've got a bit carried away, to be honest.
Well, that's brilliant. You've seen YouTube videos and comics, and you did an appearance on Phineas and Ferb, of all things.
Honestly, and particularly as like a real cartoon nerd as well. Like the going to Disney last year and trying to contain myself and trying to pretend like I was a professional and not constantly sort of biting my fist and going, "Oh my God, look where I am!" It was lovely. It was absolutely lovely.
Yeah, so and also I believe you're back in the studio at the moment recording.
Yes, yeah. I've just done a lot. I wanted to do a nice big dancey project. So I'm doing so many shows. So I wanted to do something that was based around just a nice light party thing. And it's called the Giddy Limit, because that's what my grandma used to say to me. "You are the Giddy Limit." I really race. So yes, that will be out hopefully in the next few weeks.
And also, I've seen you asking questions around some time travel, things, which I can only assume is going to be a follow-up.
Well, yes, absolutely. Like I'm starting to get to the stage where I've got too many ideas, so I'm planning further and further ahead. I've got albums mapped out till like bloody 2017. But at the end of Father of Invention, my last album, Jeffrey, my monkey butler, stole my time travel trousers and is lost in time. And because I'm a comic book continuity freak, I can't leave that kind of thread hanging for too long, so I have to have an album. I'm going to do the album that I always planned to do with Tom, where there's rappers and different musicians representing different periods of time, and I'm going to seek him out, but I'm going to do that later in the year, so I shan't worry about that now.
Yeah, marvellous. Yeah, the time travel trousers, they sound suspiciously like a time machine that we all know and love.
Yes,
it does. Yeah.
You can't do something about time travel without a bit of that in it. Absolutely.
Absolutely. You mentioned there about comics, which is great, because that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I know you're a big comic book nerd.
Oh, yes.
So there's been a lot going on recently in terms of comics with the whole Justice League thing starting coming up on the big screen and the small screen at the same time, and then of course there's all the Marvel Avengers and all the cinematic and TV universes. Are you following much of those? What are your thoughts on where things are going with those?
Oh yeah, no, on the one hand, I love it because it kind of keeps comics are kind of a dying medium until, in terms of like the traditional superhero comics, the audience is getting older and the new ones weren't jumping on. So there's elements of it that I really love in that it's keeping them in the forefront of pop culture and all that kind of stuff. And a Justice League movie is going to be amazing. At the same time, it's meant that the narratives of like superhero comics have taken a real battering. And you can read, when you read a mainstream DC or Marvel comic, they're all based around. I read some of the Jeff Johns stuff recently, and it was such a kind of by the numbers. Well, we're going to do this story, which makes you read that, and then that's going to lead into the crossover. And of course, that's been going on for a long while, but it seems ever more cynical and ever more directed from above to kind of, well, you need to have this, and this character in it doing that, and that, which I think does have a bit of an impact on the sort of narrative side. I'm really into Image comics at the moment, just like blown up with all kinds of crazy, brilliant things. That's where all the good stuff seems to be happening.
Anything in particular?
There's Pretty Deadly. Like there's a Western one called Pretty Deadly. There's an Ed Brubaker written one called Velvet. Like it's a spy comic about a Miss Moneypenny type character who turns out to be like the best spy in the world. And they're both characters with really good, strong female leads, which is, as you know, a rarity in comics. And of course, you've got things like The Walking Dead and some of their more sort of traditional stuff. So, and the nice about reading something, the stuff in Image comics is you don't have to get a big silly old crossover. I'm tired of crossovers. I've done too many. I've got crossover fatigue, and I hope other people stop buying them so we don't all have to kind of get things like Forever Evil and all the rest of it.
Yeah, because I've got most of Forever Evil, but now I'm missing a couple of bits, and then they're stopping some of the comics. Suicide Squad's stopping now, and then they've got to start up something else. Every time I start getting a comic from DC, they cancel it.
Yeah, well, that's the downside of them being so brutal. Honestly, I have to say I've completely given up on DC. I've got no time for it. Ever since the New 52, I was one of those sort of grumpy old men that went stomping off going, well, you shan't have any more of my money. I shall see what Marvel are doing. And Marvel are still doing good things. Like Thor is really amazing and Daredevil's super and Captain America's great at the moment. So I reckon Marvel and Image are running things. DC need to sort themselves out.
Absolutely. I wish I could, but I've only just got my daughter into collecting comics, so she collects Supergirl and Justice League. So
Right, go with it then. That's absolutely that's what you have to do. My 5-year-old has just started showing an interest in like some of the female superheroes, and my God, I'm nurturing that as much as I can.
Absolutely.
She realizes that Dad likes it, so it's not cool. So at the moment, it's fine.
That's exactly. I went back and I bought off eBay. I got the whole run of Power Pack. I don't know if you remember Power Pack.
Oh yeah, perfect.
I got the whole run of that for her, and she read it. She's like, "What? Children can be superheroes too?" I was like, "Yes, they can."
There's a lot of them.
Good idea. I'm totally stealing that. That's brilliant. Actually, they should. Marvel and DC are a bit missing a trick to some extent, because now all of the parents of the comic readers, they should be doing stuff that we can give to our children in that respect. I suppose there are kind of kiddie versions of things, but I don't know. There's more potential there. Power Pack. God, I never thought I'd say that.
Well, indeed, yeah, because I remember reading Power Pack when I was a kid, because it was a secondary strip in the Return of the Jedi magazine.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, because when you're a kid reading British comics of our sort of age, if you're in your sort of 30s, late 30s, the sort of comics that you got were not always the ones that you would have chosen. Like I remember reading loads of, I think it was called Strike Force Maturi. It was a sort of new universe thing that was in the back of Transformers or something, and it was really sodding grim, man. It was really I would never have chosen to read that as a child, but it was quite good. It was dark.
Quite a few of the Marvel UK ones were really dark, like the Warheads.
Yeah, yes, that was, and I remember, I really remember Grant Morrison's first story for Marvel was a Zoids comic, and it was just messed up. Like, it was really dark, typically Grant Morrison. Like they were playing chess, and maybe they'd already died, and da da da. And I was like, I thought these were little wind-up robots. It blew my mind.
I'd completely forgotten about Zoids. I used to have some of them.
They were shit.
They were very shit wind-up things.
They were sort of very British, with
a little. They're
sort of like robots, but you have to put in a lot of effort and you get nothing.
And what was with the little things that you put in them that looked like Tweaky from Buck Rogers?
God, I suddenly want a Zoid. That's my midlife crisis coming through. Honestly,
oh God, that's right. You used to lift up their heads.
The heads, and they put out a little Tweaky. Yeah,
tiny men you put in them. I remember that.
They
I'm doing the actions, even though no one's ever going to be able to see this. But I am.
Yeah, me too. Oh dear Lord, that takes me back.
I think I've still got a few up in the attic with my Transformers.
See, one moment I think I'm cutting edge with the comics. I'm talking about the new Image comics and great female leads. Really, give me 2 minutes. I'm talking about Zoids I used to have. I'm desperate.
But speaking about the kind of strong female characters and things, have you heard about the new Marvel TV series that's being done through Netflix?
Oh no! Tell us about that.
It's that there's like I think it's at least 3 different.
There's Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Daredevil.
Oh, I love a Jessica Jones. She was like that Alias comic was amazing. It's one of my favourite runs ever.
Exactly.
That's one of the things we've been continually talking about the last sort of few episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's built into it's 4 character-driven mini-series leading to a Hell's Kitchen sort of mega series.
See, finally, you think that like TV and film would have learnt the lesson, and then they put out S.H.I.E.L.D. and you were just like, no, you haven't learnt it. We don't care. We want superheroes. That's all we want. We don't care about your frigging relationship. Give us some superheroes. So finally, it looks like they might have learned that lesson from us nerds.
Well, yeah, I think we've ranted a lot about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in that the kind of the 2 main characters are basically blocks of wood with no backstory.
Yeah, that's not the move, is it? They kind of, they'll learn slowly but surely. They're kind of.
It is getting better, and
we run popular culture, and that's a beautiful thing. Like there was a time where we had no say at all, and all we had was like a crap Punisher film, and now people realise that we've got money to spend, and they do listen to us to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean that's something again that we've spoken about on the show before, and I know this is a route that you've taken yourself, which is the crowdfunder approach.
Yeah, honestly, it's wonderful, and there's no way that the professor I was going to do this in character. I've obviously completely slipped out of it. Sorry to disappoint anyone who was hoping for the Professor. He seems to have gone, and there's only me left. Doesn't matter. But yeah, there's no way the Professor would have possibly existed without the kind of culture that we're in now, without YouTube and crowdfunding and all those things. You know, no one would have given me a record deal and still wouldn't in a million years. So it's really nice. I think that gives us a little bit more power, or at least the illusion of power when it comes to at least the sort of culture and popular stuff that we like.
So it was well worth me sharing with everybody all your YouTube videos for the last 2 years then. As much as possible.
I say that to everybody who ever says, "Oh, I showed my mate your video." I'm like, "You are the only reason I'm standing here today." I'm so insanely grateful for anybody who spreads the word.
Well, I think it was actually me who introduced you to Simon one evening. So, have you ever heard of this guy? It was Fighting Trousers I chucked on for you.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, and of course that isn't, even that in itself. I'm completely also reliant on the person who makes all the beats, Tom Caruana, and Moog, who directs all of the videos. Again, me just doing it on my own, dancing around, is not that good. I'd kind of need the extra dressing. So yeah, although the Professor's going really well, I'm very aware of my reliance on the nice friends and the fan base and friends I've got around me. Without that, I'd sink without a trace and go back to the call centre.
I was going to say, well, if you ever need a backup monkey butler, I'm pretty good at that one.
I always need a backup monkey butler. I tell you, I get through them really quickly. I'll get you on board.
I'm not joking. I was actually reputed throughout the bus company for about 2-3 years around locally as the monkey boy.
He does do extraordinarily good animal impressions.
Oh, do you? Don't say stuff like that to me, because I'll see you at a show and I'll be like, right, 10 minutes backstage. What are you going to do?
Yeah, not a problem.
You really don't want to have 10 minutes with him backstage.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
Maybe 10 seconds. But...
Yes, we're on about comics and stuff like that. One of the ones I've been thinking, nobody's really touched it, is a pirate-themed comic book.
Yeah, you're right, actually. There's not a decent long-running pirate comic book. And there bloody well should be, shouldn't there?
Yeah,
did you read... Did you I got the Before Watchmen things?
Yeah, Tales of the Black Freighter. I was going to say.
God, that was friggin' grim. That was like every single panel had something horrible happening in it. I couldn't even read. It didn't even make any sense. I couldn't read it. But it wasn't the pirates I was looking for. I needed something different to that.
No, that's more kind of zombie pirates.
Yeah, I'm thinking like old school swashbuckling adventure style.
Errol
Flynn-esque, yes.
God, well, I haven't got plans to do another character, but if I do, maybe some kind of enthusiastic, ineffective pirate. Actually, have you seen
Perfect.
That Pirates film?
An Adventure with Science.
Yes, it's brilliant. Yeah. That was one of the best kids' films I've seen for a long while, and God knows I've watched a lot of kids' films lately.
Yeah, indeed. No, I love that. I went to see that with my daughter, and that was absolutely hilarious.
It was tip top, wasn't it? Every aspect of it, I was on board. It was good.
Very much so. So yes, in terms of things you've got coming up, live performances, are you touring at the moment, or do you ever stop touring?
I never stop touring, and I don't think I ever will. I've realised that's the key to my modest little... It's just to keep doing shows, and I love it, and it's what pays the mortgage. So those three things combined, I mean, that I will always do shows when they come up, and I've been very lucky in that there seems to be a nice little flow of things coming in. But at the same time, I've got to be careful because last year I didn't do as much actual creative stuff as I wanted to. So this year I'm going to try and get some more albums out, and I've also got a novel coming out in the summer, which I wrote with a friend. Nimu Brown, and that is going to be very fun. We wrote it without really knowing what the plot was. We just wrote letters backwards and forwards to each other in character.
Yeah,
until the plot developed.
It's also Tom Brown, because we had Jonathan Green on the show, who's a steampunk author, and I think Tom does a lot of the illustrations for Jonathan as well.
And he's doing the illustrations for this book, thank goodness.
Like he did one of your comics as well, didn't he?
He did. They did the most beautiful story, and they did it's one of my favourite stories because lots of kids have read it, and I watched them with the same look actually that I had when I read that Grant Morrison Zoid story, because the story that they did for my Professor comic, all the rest of them are like, oh, a professor goes on a wacky adventure and finds a plane, or something fairly straightforward, and theirs was just me up in an attic in this strange dreamlike world with beautiful illustrations, and it's confusing and lovely, and just everything that fiction should be. And I can't recommend their comic, Hopeless Maine, highly enough. I absolutely love it. It's good on every level.
Yeah, I think we missed the Kickstarter on that one because I think we talked about it, but I don't think we'd seen it in time, and it had closed before we got into it.
Oh man, it's a good one for your daughter as well, because the heroine is sort of, I don't know, maybe about a 10-year-old girl with magical powers, and it's dark, but only the sort of darkness that kids should have. Do you know what I mean?
Sure,
not like
brilliant.
inappropriate darkness, but they should have some darkness in their stories.
Like the Neil Gaiman style darkness.
Yeah,
Ocean at the
absolutely.
end of the lane kind of darkness.
Say that again.
Ocean at the end of the lane kind of darkness.
Yes, that was a beautiful thing, wasn't it? Absolutely lovely.
Where's my brain gone? Sorry, I had a train of thought there and it's completely escaped me now.
Don't you worry about it, Trent. I read the original Little Mermaid to 5-year-old Molly tonight, and I saw a little wistful, sad confusion on her face as I told her that the Little Mermaid, don't know, she doesn't marry the prince, she goes off, becomes sea foam. Night.
Did you go to see the Little Mermaid when you were in Denmark then?
What
The
an
actual
Little
yes.
Mermaid? No, because I was only in the airport. I didn't even know I was going to Denmark. I was very confused.
Oh, okay.
I thought I was going to Sweden, and then I was like, "Welcome to Denmark." I was like, "Oh, that's nice. Look, I'm in Denmark. How lovely!" Then I stumbled off to the wedding gig that I had.
Yes, that was gigs that I was talking about.
Yes,
so
those
yes,
were-
sorry. So yeah, what have you got coming up soon? Because you seem to be do all sorts of different things.
My God, I really do all sorts of different things. One minute I'm like at a really plush wedding in Sweden, and then the next minute I'm in a school for young people with very severe behavioural disorders, doing a workshop. So it really is all kinds of odds and ends. The next thing I've got is at the Blind Tiger in Brighton. So if you're in Brighton, come to that. And then lots of lovely conventions. There's a couple of American ones, the Wild West Con in Arizona and Gaslight Convention in San Diego, so I'm very lucky to be going to those. And of course, a couple of British ones. Finally, I'm going to Kittercon, and I'm also doing the Sci-Fi Weekender, which, as we know from when we met, of course, there last year, absolutely cracking. It's great fun.
It is. We're massively looking forward to going along this year. So we have a competition later on to do with that, which we'll be announcing.
Oh, fantastic! And of course, yours was an absolute. She was the star of the show at that, wasn't she? She was incredible.
Yes, good old Professor Megan.
Professor Megan, she just rocked it, man. There's not many young people, you know, it's always a bit of a dicey business getting a child on stage, because if it goes wrong and they start crying, you're suddenly the worst person in the world.
Unfortunately, you have trouble getting Megan off a stage.
Yeah, exactly. She ran it, man. She was great.
Well, as was proven, because after she got off the stage for you, she got back up again with Robert Rankin later.
She did, and then when I did another show that you came to, she was back on the stage again, dressed up as me. Oh, it's wonderful, wonderful stuff.
But yeah, that was another thing, because do you do many of those types? Because that was your Professor Elemental's attic show. Do you do many ones of those? Because that was a very different thing in a theatre.
No, I don't, but I've got, I'm really keen to try some new things that are a bit more theatre-y. I've been writing lots of sort of comedic horror stories, because I'm such a big horror fan as well. I'm trying to weave some of the professoriness into all of the horror things. So I'm considering next year working with Moog on doing some radio plays that we record in front of a live audience. But, you know, it's just one. I've got a big bit of paper that covers an entire wall. It looks a little bit like the scribblings of a madman, and to an extent it is. But it's in my office and it's got like a gazillion ideas, and we'll just have to see which ones to actually get made.
That's right. We'll just worry when you've like whittled your nails down and you're writing it in your own blood.
Oh, God. Have you been in my office? How do you know?
Can't remember what that was from. Never mind. It's a reference to something or other.
It is.
Sure, it'll come back to me.
I've read so many things where it ends up doing that.
Yeah, I think it's probably Sandman. I think it was the Neil Gaiman one with the guy who he says he wanted ideas, so Dream gave him ideas forever.
Ideas? Oh, God, I think that might be what's happened to me. Too many ideas.
Did you go stealing anthropomorphic deifications again?
Sorry. We were just sitting there. I couldn't help myself.
Actually, have you started reading the prequel that's come out for that?
Yes, very lovely it was too. I could kind of do with another one now.
Yeah, I
before-
could do. Yeah, it was back in, what was it, December that came out.
Yeah, I've got a feeling it's going to be one of those comics that I read, enjoy, and it doesn't make any sense till I eventually get them all and read them all as well and go, oh yeah, okay. So,
Yeah,
when comics take too long, they just you lose interest. I bought that Jonathan Ross Brian Hitch one that wasn't very good. When
Right.
America Got Powers, and that took like fucking. Pardon my French. Took 2 years to come out, and it didn't make any sense by the time I was reading it. I'd lost interest.
Well, yeah, I mean, the pinnacle of that one is that we're going to finally get the ending of Miracle Man.
Yes, won't that be a wonderful thing?
Yeah.
And I highly recommend to readers, to listeners rather, I read a brilliant Alan Moore biography called Magic Words recently that was recommended to me, and it is absolutely lovely. It's one of the best books on comics you'll read, and it sheds a lot of light on all of Alan Moore's controversies and conflicts, and is very fair as well. It doesn't say, oh well, he was a lovely man, he got it all wrong. It explains that he's a very obstinate man, but
Really, I don't get that from him.
yeah, but at the same time, it really made me think about the way that I do business, the way you should do business creatively, because his whole reasoning seems to be that he will only work with people he utterly trusts. Mm-hmm. And so if the trust breaks down, or if he feels like they need to have a contract to ensure the trust is there, he just won't work with them anymore because the trust isn't there. And I thought that's a very admirable, beautiful thing. That's the very essence of creativity. So I'm going to aim to do the same.
Yeah, there was another a documentary that I saw on TV a while ago, which was Jonathan Ross in Search of Ditko.
Oh yeah, that was great, wasn't it?
Did you see that one?
Yeah, that was really good.
That was because when they finally tracked him down to the offices at the end, it was Jonathan Ross and Neil Gaiman who ended up going into Ditko's office. They weren't allowed to film it there, and you just saw them kind of go, "We're outside the office now, we're going in," and then they came out like clutching comic books. I've never seen Neil Gaiman with a fanboy face. He just came out going, "He gave us comics."
Something I've learned, that everybody is a fanboy to somebody. Every creative person that you admire has got somebody else that they admire, who might not be, further up the tree. They're all in different positions, but everybody admires somebody, and I think that's a really nice thing about nerdism. The best thing about that Ditko documentary was there was a little moment where Stan Lee was being Stan Lee, and there was a chink in the armour. I can't remember what Jonathan Ross said, but he said some piercing question about, do you feel guilty about it or something?
Yeah.
And for a second, Stan Lee looked like a human being. He was just looking really guilty and bad about it. I loved it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I vaguely remember that. So, having said that, now we have to ask, who do you fanboy over?
Oh, cool. Who do I fanboy over? A mix of people, actually. Some of them are like, way up the tree, the obvious beautiful people like Neil Gaiman and all the obvious writers, but also people who I've done stuff with and just thought, you're so amazing. The Army of Walter Sickert and the Army of Broken Toys. I've only played with them once in America, and I'm a little bit in love with them as a band. I completely fanboy over them all the time and get excited when they tweet me.
I've not come across them. You'll have to send us through some links to put in the
they're
show.
Utterly brilliant. I can't, yeah, they're brilliant recorded. They're even better live, and their videos are superb. And also to an extent, Steam Powered Giraffe in America, who are incredibly slick, and there's a relatively new steampunk band here. It was a friend of mine who I've just got a bit of a just huge admiration for, called Mysterious Freak Show, and they're a kind of rocky, ballsy steampunk band. Oh, and the Men Who Won't Be Blamed for Nothing as well.
The Men Who Will Not Be Blamed for Nothing. They're great. I've seen them. They're great.
Can't help but love them. So yeah, I got a lot of love. I got an awful lot of love.
Yeah, we had one of their tracks on a show about 6 months ago, I think it was.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, so we spoke with them, and they said it was cool to put their tracks on the show. So yeah.
Yeah, they're as is always the way with these things, I tend to admire people even more when they turn out to be really lovely.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's often what I have a problem with rappers, because some of the rappers that I love most, I know if I met them, I'd be like, you're a bit of a dick. But it's when you have that beautiful combination of like, wow, your creative stuff's amazing, and also, as a person, you're lovely. that's the perfect match, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quite.
No, I mean, I have to say, out of bits of your show that I've really enjoyed, I really, really enjoy the bit where you get all the audience just to hold up random objects.
Yes,
and then you freestyle. That's amazing.
Well, it's a really old, like, hip hop trick that I remember being really like, wow, that's amazing. But what always happens at hip hop gigs is people haven't got that much crap in their pockets. They've always got their keys, a lighter, a phone. So the first time you say, wow, you think that's amazing. But the second time you think, well, actually, you've obviously got rhymes for a keys, wallet, and a phone, because that's what everybody's always got. The lovely thing about doing it at nerd gigs,
I was going to say,
because they have all sorts of interesting things.
they've got, like, Thor's hammer, a mighty staff, a penguin on a stick for no reason at all, a hat with lights on. It's lovely. It makes
Handful of Lego. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I imagine you've come up with coming up against some interesting things being waved at you in the
and sometimes things that floor me so completely that I'm so busy going, oh my God, I can't believe you brought that I mess up my rhymes and it all goes completely wrong.
And why would you want to put that in your pocket?
Yeah, exactly. Why have you got that?
Just because.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I recommend to people, if particularly those people who don't like hip hop, if you've ever seen my show and like that, it's one of the finest things about rap music, and there are some incredible rappers out there that do a much better job of freestyling than I do. If anybody's Brighton based, there's a band called The Spoken Herd, and they just freestyle the whole show at a level that is just utterly intimidating. They do whole stories and weave all kinds of different things into it. So yeah, I'm one of the lower rung of the ladder when it comes to freestyling compared to some people.
Okay, well, we'll have to get links off you for those as well. We can post them out in the show notes for people to have a listen.
Yeah, I'll pass them around, definitely.
Marvellous. 5 films we forgot. We haven't asked you this yet because everybody who comes on the show, we have to ask them for their 5 films to give to our NerdVsWorld list of films you have to see. So everybody says this is a tough thing, so how did you find it?
Well, it's a list that was probably very admirable up until it gets to me, and then I'll probably manage to discredit it. They'll get as far as they'll read all the films in the list, and they'll be like, wow, all those films I've got to see, and then they'll get like, actually, this list is meaningless if they're willing to put those films on there that he likes. At what point there's no quality control. Films are brilliant. My favourite film in the whole world is Who Framed Roger Rabbit, partly because of it having that clash of Disney and Warner Brothers, which I just remember seeing, just being mind blown. All the animation is incredible because it's not so much special effects but great animation. But it also kicked off like this beautiful 90s renaissance of animation, of the Ren and Stimpies and all of the great Disney films that came after it. And Roger Rabbit kicked it all off, so it holds a special place in my heart.
No, it's fantastic. As literally about 2 weeks ago, we were sat down and I was thinking of films that my daughter had to watch, and that was one of them because we watched Rocky Horror, which she had to watch because it's fantastic. But weirdly, she knew all the music already because it had been on in the car, so I figured, well, if she knows the songs already, she might as well watch the film.
I was weird with Rocky Horror. I hate it. It represents loads of things that I love, and yet somehow I think as a child, my dad's always done hospital radio, and I always had to go along to hospital radio wedding discos, and they'd always play the time warp.
Yeah.
And I think somehow it locked my brain and made it something that I hate. So I admire it on some level, but it's always a bit lost on me, the Rocky Horror.
Yeah. The other thing about Roger Rabbit is that it's responsible for the way I knock on people's doors.
Yes, absolutely.
It's the shave and a haircut thing.
Well, it's great as well because it's got that little bit of darkness that so many films are a bit afraid to do now. I think the villain is Christopher Lloyd, isn't it?
It's Christopher Lloyd, yeah.
He's a terrifying villain, and he kills cartoon characters by melting them in acid, which is just like it gives it a little bit of an extra edge to it.
You did not want to see Megan's face when that shoe bit the farm.
Poor little Molly's been subjected to good and bad pretty much every animated film that's come up, but I'm saving Roger Rabbit. I don't think he's ready for that yet.
Well, I was going to say, I think if there was any film off the list that involved Christopher Lloyd as a wild-haired eccentric, it would have had to have been Back to the Future with the time travel connotations, sir.
Well, even that's a bit weird. Even that's not quite right to have to explain to a 5-year-old. Yeah, I know, he's nearly getting off with his mum back in. Like, let's not go there either.
Okay, cool. So, Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Okay. So that's up there. There's and I'm afraid the rest are probably going to be very disreputable horror films for the most part. And there's a French film called Inside, which is horrendous.
Okay, not one I've come across.
It's absolutely the best, my favourite horror film. I watched it about 10 years ago as a real veteran of like, oh God, I've seen it all. There's nothing that can shock me anymore. And it was wonderful. I was terrified. Is it the premise? I don't even need to explain much about the premise because it's so unpleasant. The premise is it's a pregnant woman in a house and another woman outside who really wants her baby. That's it's horrible.
That does sound pretty nasty.
Oh my God, it's wonderful. It's part of a sort of wave of French horror films, Martyrs being the kind of pinnacle of those films. And I've been in many dinner party conversations talking about movies we like, and I started talking about either Martyrs or Inside, and I've managed to completely deaden the conversation, and I've had to go and get the dessert or something as the table sits in silence.
Horrendous thing. Here, have some pie.
Yeah. I've written a song recently coming out soon called We Love Horror, which is about my experiences of trying to explain the joy of horror films to the uninitiated and the terrible times I've invited people over who aren't in this little inner circle of lovers of horror. I've gone, no, it'll be fun, come and watch it. And then I've never seen them again, like even on a social level afterwards.
Nice, yeah. We had a movie night on Saturday. We ended up watching Versus at ridiculous o'clock in the morning. If you've seen that,
no, I haven't. What's that?
That's a Japanese one. It's a Tartan Asia Extreme one.
Oh, one of the. Oh, hello.
Which is basically martial arts zombie mob film.
Yeah.
Oh, that's quite a combo.
Which is, it's all very weird.
With
it all takes
deep
place
set
in the
plot
woods,
in
and
there.
there's demons and all sorts of things. It's very, very odd.
Oh yeah,
And there's the Immortals in it as well.
God, they really did throw it. The Japanese do that sometimes, don't
yes,
they?
they do. Yeah.
Or sometimes they have. I watched a few films. There was one called Uzumaki, I think, where nothing pretty much happens for about an hour, and then at the end, it's the end of the world, and everyone turns into a snail and goes into a weird spiral. The end. I'm like, oh, that's the thing.
Yeah, marvellous.
So that's two. So we've got Inside or L'Intérieur, and the two other ones are fairly obvious choices, but they are my favourites. So they should go in there, which is Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Shining, just as two iconic films. I can't watch enough. They sum up everything I like about horror between them. And the last one, very tricky. Oh, that's four, isn't it? I want to go for another cartoon because I don't want people to think I'm just some kind of fiend. But there's, where do you go with cartoons? There are so many beautiful, lovely bits of animation. I'm not even sure. I'm very keen on Fantasia 2000, although it has got Angela Lansbury in it, which I saw in the IMAX, and that was more terrifying than Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
If you're going to go for the live action versus cartoon, and Angela Lansbury's Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, isn't it? She's in that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not making that one of my top 5 films. Well, it's either going to be the original Muppet movie, or it's going to be Castle Freak.
Okay.
You choose. Probably the Muppet movie.
The Muppet movie.
Because that you can't. It was filmed in the era when Muppets were at their prime. I've got so much love for them. They're the most glorious creations.
I have to admit, I do love the new one.
Yeah, it took me. I had to warm to it. Moog was just like all for it, and there was a few things on it that I sort of grated on me slightly, and then I had to come to terms with my inner nerd and just think, come on, Paul, you've got to appreciate things for what they are, not live in the past. And actually, it was really good. And the trailer for the new one looks pretty cool as well. It looks a bit. I like the madcap. I like it when it gets really wacky, and that does look pretty wacky.
I have my reservations because it involves Ricky Gervais.
Yes, and I really, really dislike Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, we all kind of have issues with him.
I was all right with him up until that program he made about the man pretending about when he was a special needs character, and it made me so cross, particularly as someone who's worked in that field for a really long while and has nothing but admiration for the people working in it and the people that they work with. And I just thought that came from such a wrong angle. From that point onwards, I just thought, Ricky,
you're an arse.
You're an arse. You're an arse, and you always will be. Keep away from my Muppets. So yes, okay. Let's keep with Muppet. Let's keep with the Muppets. We'll leave Castle Freak on the shelf. Some people might want to seek it out, and that's their business. But we're going to go Muppets for number 5, just so it's not all darkness and terror.
Marvellous. And I think that about brings us to a close.
Yeah, that was beautiful, chaps. Thanks for having me. I'm sorry if I rambled a bit extensively. To be honest, I've got no real friend. I've got one mate who likes comics, and that's it. And so if someone asked me anything about comics, I would talk forever about it.
Dude, it's absolutely fine.
That's what we do. That's what the show's about.
Indeed, that's what this whole show is just about, nerding out, sir.
Oh, that's nice. Thanks for having me. I feel like I've released a lot tonight. It's been super. Thanks for having me.
It's been lovely. So thank you very much. We'll let you go, and then we've got a bit of wrapping up to do. So so thank you very much for being on the show.
I'll just say I better just do the plugging thing because I always forget. For the little listeners, come and see me at professorelemental.com, where you can get tea and comics and stuff, or on Twitter, which I sit on relentlessly, and that is at prof_elemental. And thanks very much for having me again.
Thank you very much, sir, for being on the show.
Oh, lovely. Toodaloo, chaps.
Thank you very much once again to the lovely Professor Elemental for coming on the show and nerding out with us. It was an absolute pleasure, sir. So, yes, just before we wrap up for the week and leave you with hopefully a brand new spanking clean song. Brand spanking new clean? I don't know whether it'll be clean or not. Shiny, that's the word I was looking for. Brand new shiny song from the Professor, which hopefully he'll be sending me through tomorrow. So at the moment, I have no idea what it's called or anything, but all the details will be in the show notes. But just to finish us off for this week, big news about competitions, which will be going live on Friday morning. We have 50 pairs of day passes to this year's Sci-Fi Weekender, and we have a top prize to give away of the full weekend accommodation, Pluto accommodation, for 4 people. And all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning these lovely presents is to go onto our Facebook page, make sure you've liked our Facebook page, and then enter your details there and share the Facebook page, and then you'll be entered into the competition. And it will be running for 2 weeks from Friday, closing on Friday the 28th of February at 10 p.m. So yes, by all means, everybody go online, share the competition. That's how you win. So yes, please do go on, share, win, come and see us, drink beer, yay!
All right, and that's it for this week. So, 1 spectacular guest, 1 spectacular announcement, and 3 mediocre,
slightly bibbling
nerds.
show hosts.
But yeah,
my brain's fried, man.
Bring me comics.
The coffee and the wonderful bacon and maple cupcakes that I've just eaten.
They were the best.
It's probably a sugar high.
Maple.
So thank you to my wife for giving us bacon and maple syrup cupcakes because they were awesome.
They were delicious. But that is it for this week. So thank you all for listening, and thanks once again to Professor Elemental for being fantastic. I've been Brendan.
I think I've been Spindles.
I've definitely been Ady.
And until next time, you know the drill. Take care and be excellent to each other.
Sir! Sir! What is it, Pew? There's a ship off the starboard bow, sir. They're signalling for us to surrender, sir. They want to board us. Oh, really? Well then, Pew, lower the sail. Let's make sure we give them a warm welcome. Yes, yeah. Your first mistake was to step upon my bow unannounced and not expect to get trounced, to get played, to get bounced. I guess you felt quite brave with that swagger and pout, but that behaviour gives way to a shadow of doubt. Your second issue was to slight me in front of my crew. That's suicide. What were you trying to do? My shipmates are committed, passionate pirates, particularly prickly with a passion for violence. While you were on deck, your third issue is clear. You left your ship unattended with nobody near. Didn't you hear about my legendary trousers that walk me through conquest and stride over doubters? This isn't just fighting, a scrabbling scuffle. This is capture and crush, a major kerfluffle. The time for apologies has now passed. No quarter given, no quarter asked. I've had all I can stand and I can't stand no more. Of course you realise this means war. Prepare for a smackdown when I'm back off tour. Of course you realise this means war. I'll board your ship and then strip it raw. Spell that backwards, this means war. My will is too strong, my motive's too pure. No quarter given, this means war. Imagine for a second you were battered like a haddock by a captain who kept smashing you and slapping, and in fact you wish you hadn't. It was saddening, but hang on, when you came to, it was actually happening. You're married to a beatdown. Yield, say I do. Don't try to come with rhymes. I could beat you with a haiku. You've been lied lie to, sir. You never had a chance. How you ended up as captain must have been mere happenstance. And now your ship is burning, night sky lit with flame. Things will never be the same. You should never play a game until you're sure that winning is a real consideration. Thanks for playing all the same. I offer my commiserations. Then get this scurvy dog out of my sight. There's 7 more ships we need to conquer tonight. The wind's at our backs, lads. Onwards to victory! This is my empire, my word is law. Of course you realise this means war. Beaten till you're broken, left bloody on the floor. Of course you realise this means war. Challenge me, I'll shake your foundations to the core. Of course you realise this means war. I have a family, sir, I beg you, no more. No quarter given, sir, this means war. Have their captain scrub my poop deck. I want to see my face in it. Hoist the sail, lads. Anyone who wants to join Professor Elemental's empire is welcome. Throw the others overboard. Break open the ales. Torch the other ship. And fetch me a biscuit, my scurvy's acting up. Onwards for steampunk, for glory!